National Democratic Congress accuses NPP of conniving with civil societies like Imani Ghana and CDD to forge figures on corruption as it presents its official response on the opposition party's position on the State of the Nation address.
When Nanado realized that in the area of corruption, our government has persistently been scoring higher and higher and higher in spite of their claim that corruption was exploding. They now are not quoting the report of Transparency International again. They have manufactured their own NGOs here who create reports, and then they put them, they use the reports to compare with their own Transparency International reports when they were in government.
The governing party is also questioning the moral authority of the NPP flag bearer to criticize President Mahama's leadership.
Area of leadership, which is very critical in any presidential elections. At the level of leadership, a cursory assessment of President Mahama's approach to government and the leadership, or rather lack of it, by Nana Akufo-Addo to the NPP revealed which of these two gentlemen has the capacity to lead this peaceful nation. Whereas President Mahama has taken responsibility for long-standing national problems, some of which preceded his accession to the presidency, and striven to resolve same, Nana Akufo-Addo takes responsibility for nothing that happens, even in the party he purports to lead.
We'll hear from spokesperson of Nana Akufo-Addo and get a response from Imani and the CDD. This is today's big story with me, Kwache Afreniama. The National Democratic Congress has launched a full-scale attack on the new Patriotic Party, accusing the party of cooking up figures on corruption. Flag bearer of the NPP, Nana Akufo-Addo, yesterday described President Mahama's State of the Nation address as, quote, an embarrassing exercise of mediocrity. According to the three-time flag bearer, the NDC's fight against corruption is simply a sham. But addressing a press briefing today, General Secretary of the governing party, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, says the NPP is engaging in falsehood.
You see, when it suits Nanado, he goes outside to pick any document and bring it and be flaunting it around as his evidence. And at times too, when he knows that outside information will not help him achieve what he wants to achieve, then he comes home and they manufacture the information here for him and he'll be using it. I'll demonstrate this to you. You see, when Nanado realized that in the area of corruption, our government has persistently been scoring higher and higher and higher in spite of their claim that corruption was exploding. They now are not quoting the report of Transparency International again. They have manufactured their own NGOs here who create reports, and then they put them, they use the reports to compare with their own Transparency International reports when they were in government. So we are not surprised that they will be engaging in this type of thing. The fact of the matter is that the Crown Agent's report, which Nanado sought to rely on, has been repudiated, it has been discredited, and has been thrown into the dustbin. It is not a source that should be relied upon by somebody who wants to be the first gentleman of the land. if he wants to appear credible in the eyes of Ghanaians. This blunder is reminiscent of his embarrassing gaffe on the Kaswa interchange project, which he claimed had been inflated without basis. Because of his trademark lack of thoroughness, he did not seek the advice of his own parliamentarians before making this outstanding claim. It had to take his own ranking member, NPP ranking member of Parliament on the Roads and Transport Committee to correct this falsehood. In other words, Nana Addo claimed the price of Kaswa interchange had been inflated, and an NPP member of Parliament, who is an engineer, comes out to say, Mr. Pretending President, we beg you, we beg you, this information is incorrect. Why? Maybe that MP may belong to the other camp, so his advice is not available to their flag bearer.
Now, when Mr. Siadun Ketia was asked who these NGOs are, this was his response.
As for the local NGOs, you know them. NPP, Delhi Guide, and the other things, they are no longer quoting Transparency International reports. They are quoting the Imanis and the other CDDs, Afrobarometers, and so on. They are running away from Transparency International. And everybody knows where these NGOs are coming from.
The General Secretary of the NDC also questioned the moral authority of Nana Akufo-Addo to criticize President Mahama's leadership skills.
Leadership, which is very critical in any presidential elections. At the level of leadership, a cursory assessment of President Mahama's approach to govern and the leadership, or rather lack of it, by Nana Akufo-Addo to the NPP revealed which of these two gentlemen has the capacity to lead this peaceful nation. Whereas President Mahama has taken responsibility for long-standing national problems, some of which preceded his accession to the presidency, and striven to resolve same, Nana Akufo-Addo takes responsibility for nothing that happens, even in the party he purports to lead. President Mahama took responsibility for the power challenges that we witnessed some time ago and acted to address it, and the results are there for all to see. In a shocking twist, Nana Akufo-Addo claimed to be unaware that President Mahama took responsibility to fix the power shortages. He appears to be the only stranger in Jerusalem, despite having been firmly ensconced in the public gallery for the entire duration of the President's State of the Nation address in 2015, in which the following words were uttered to the hearing of all and sundry. I, quote, I, John Dramani Mahama, will fix this power crisis, unquote. I believe all of you were there, and you heard the President loud and clear in 2015. That is a man who takes responsibility. That is a leader who takes responsibility and takes action to deal with the challenges. This behavior would appear to confirm speculations and pictures making the rounds in sessions of the social media that Nana Addo dozed off at some point during the important address by the President, because that is the only reason which can account for his position that President Mahama did not take charge, or he did not accept the responsibility of fixing the power crisis. It is curious that Nana Akufo-Addo would speak about taking responsibility.
So that was the General Secretary of the NDC, Johnson Asiedu Nketia. We'll hear shortly from the NPP. We'll speak to Deputy General Secretary of the party, Nana Obiri Buahin. But let's first speak to the founding president of Imani Ghana, Mr. Franklin Cudjoe, for some responses on that rather serious allegation that the NPP is conniving with civil society groups, NGOs like the CDD and Imani to cook up corruption figures. Mr. Franklin Cudjoe, thanks for joining us on today's Big Story. A rather serious allegation from the NDC.
Well, thank you very much and good evening. Let me just say that I have called some of the leadership of the NDC to find out exactly what went into that type of thinking. And I've been reliably informed by the national organizer that he thought and it says that was a slip of tongue. While that may be comforting, I've got to put it on record that I think, clearly speaking, a party in government should not be antagonizing itself against civic groups. I don't think it is healthy at all. And I was entirely surprised that Mr. Civic is here. I don't know whether the view that he holds is actually the view of President Mahama or the Vice President or the Chief of Staff and majority of the ministers of the government. But as I've been told by Adams that it was a slip of tongue, I want to believe, and I want to believe that, yes.
Mr. Kofi Adams, national organizer of the party, told you that was simply a slip of tongue. It was quite emphatic, Mr. Asiedu Nketia.
And I'm sure, I'm telling you. So I called because I wanted to get to the Asiedu Nketia itself to find out what went into that type of thinking. I got to Kofi Adams, and he confided in me, actually told me that that was a slip of tongue. But having said that, this was a private discussion. I'm just going to put it on record that I think it is not smart for any government to be antagonizing itself with any civil society group. I don't think. Oh, so that's what I want to say. Otherwise, had it not been the case that I've been told that this was a real slip, all I would have said was, well, maybe Mr. Civic is here, probably misses the winter, and I might want to buy him a coat. This time it will be a male coat.
Well, Mr. Cudjoe, this is not the first time an issue of this nature has come up, Imani being tagged, NPP. I'm wondering whether it worries you.
Oh, not at all. We are not bothered at all. Don't forget, during the last election, we took a stand against the NPP free as they said. Within the NPP circles, they believe strongly we lost the election for them. And the NDC took that particular campaign and tore the NPP to shreds. Were we doing the bidding of the NDC at the time? I think, clearly speaking, that it is unfortunate that first comments will be made. I want to be debated on the things I say, but not to be debated based on shadow boxing. As I've said, because of what Kofi Adams has said, I'm willing to take that and say that, yes, possibly it was. But I still think, given your question, that it is important to lay the emphasis on the fact that state-civic relations, civil society relations, have got to be cordial. I don't think it is healthy at all. For me, ordinarily, I wouldn't even speak to this because, frankly speaking, we don't play in the league, in the Ghana league again. We are a continental think tank. We do things beyond Ghana. So we wouldn't really like anybody to draw us back. So ordinarily, I wouldn't have even commented on it. But for the fact that you called, because we don't play in this league any longer. We are working all across West Africa, dealing with very influential people across the country. So what a local politician says or does really has no impact on us at all.
And Mr. Cudjoe, finally, before you go out, want to pick your take on this back and forth between the two major political parties on the present presentation. We know that Nana Akufo-Addo, okay, it seems we lost Mr. Franklin Cudjoe on the line, founding president of Imani Ghana, responding to that very controversial comment by the General Secretary of the NDC, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, who said at that today's press conference that the NPP on the matter of corruption is conniving with some NGOs. Those were his words. Later on, he was asked, who are these NGOs, who are these civil societies that you feel are conniving with the NPP to cook up figures on corruption? His response, he mentioned the Center for Democratic Development. He also mentioned Imani Ghana, and as you just said there, the founding president of Imani Ghana, Franklin Kujo, responding to that particular matter, said that he's called up some officials of the governing party after hearing reports of this in the media, reading about it on the internet as well. And Mr. Kofi Adams, national organizer of the party, told him emphatically that this was simply a slip of tongue. But in fact, at today's press conference, a number of other issues were raised by the NDC. They talked about the fact that they doubt that the NPP would be in a position to implement what they call their Zongo Development Fund. I'm sure you've heard Nana Akufo-Addo talk about this a number of times, that when the NPP is elected this year and during the first year of their administration, taking over office, if that happens in 2017, they will introduce this Zongo Development Fund. The NDC says that they doubt that can happen at all. One, because they believe that when the NPP was in power for 8 years, they did nothing at all to improve the lives of people who live in Zongo communities. They also talked about the school feeding program, the fact that the NPP failed to expand it to areas, these Zongo communities. When we come back, we'll get a response from the new Patriotic Party and also speak to the national organizer of the NDC. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to today's big story with me, Kwachi Afreniama. We've been thankfully joined on the line by Deputy General Secretary of the NPP, Nana Obri-Boahen. Thanks, Nana Obri-Boahen, for joining us on today's big story. First off, I want your response to the rather serious allegation by the NDC that you collaborating with some NGO civil societies to cook up figures on corruption. They mentioned. I want your response on that.
That is baseless. That is baseless, unacademic, unreasonable. Baseless, unacademic, and unreasonable. Baseless in the sense that Imani is a reputable think tank body. AFAG is a reputable body. Occupy Ghana, reputable body. NPP is a reputable political party. So how on earth do you say that we have been taken to this institution? It's a baseless, irresponsible, unacademic, and unreasonable.
Well, yesterday, when Anado was presenting his speech on what the party calls a true state of the nation address, he mentioned, for example, that government's fight against corruption is a sham. And the major reason he gave is that all these major corruption scandals we've had, Sada, Jida, and so on, were unearthed by the media, civil society, and the minority in parliament. But the NPP, the NDC, is saying that there's nothing wrong with that, really, because these are partners in development. Nana Obri-Boahen, partners in development, the media, and so on.
We need to be serious. With all the scandals, Suba, Jida, RLG, and what have you, tell me how many of their members have been prosecuted? How many of the activists and sympathizers have been prosecuted? Sumati, the latest one, Sumati. Isn't it ironic that notwithstanding all the avalanche of corruption engulfed in Sumati's deal, nobody has been reigned before Edicom? So you see, this is the most corrupt government this nation has ever had. Ever since independence, ever since Don Diego the Azambuja.
The NDC feels that in terms of corruption, they have a far superior record to the NPP.
So I am saying that ever since Don Diego the Azambuja did set foot on the shores of this country, this is the most corrupt government we've ever had, with a clueless and a visionless leader we've ever had. The most corrupt government we've ever had. And the outstanding, clueless, and visionless leader we've ever had. And I don't think that Ghana will ever experience this kind of leadership before Jesus Christ comes again. No, you see, look, NDC is in power. They have been leveled this allegation of corruption against NPP activists, supporters, and sympathizers. How many of them have been arraigned before court? How many? Just tell me, how many NPP activists, sympathizers have been arraigned before court? No, there's no evidence, there's no scintilla of truth in what they have been saying, the allegations that have been leveled against that NPP was corrupt.
But
at least we can talk about the Brazil scandals, the Angola scandals, the Wyoming scandals, the Sumati scandals, the Suba scandals, the Gida scandals, the Sada scandals. Shameless characters.
Nano Bribwahe, the NDC points to recent corruption perception reports, particularly by Transparency International, that raised Ghana high. And he says that the NPP is refusing to refer to those deliberately.
Once again, let me pass it to Lata. At what point in time did they trust this Transparency International? Were we not in this country when the Felicity Kwasi and the rest, or Manebu and the rest, they were running down Transparency International? We need to be serious.
Nano
Before we reduce governance to this level, we need to be serious.
Away from corruption, though, one other critical issue the NDC touched on today was on this plan to set up a zone for 8 years is concerned, saying that this will certainly not happen if you are elected.
We have said it, and we still maintain the point that come 2017, when NPP comes to power, we are going to set up the zone fund. That is all. In 2000, when NPP said that when we come to power, we are going to introduce a lot of pro-poor policies. When we came to power, we did that. Mention the school feeding program.
But they ask, what specifically did the NPP do for Zongo communities 8 years in power? What did the NPP do?
What I'm saying, the NPP is not in power.
What did you do? What did you do when you were in power for Zongo communities?
So
I'm asking.
What are they doing for the Zongo community, even as they are in power now?
What did the NPP do for Zongo communities is a question the NDC asked. I want a response to that.
Let them tell us what.
Nano Bribwa, I get your point, but they asked the question, are you willing to answer?
Yes, we were able to improve a lot of the lifestyle of the people from Zongo community. Why and how?
How?
With the introduction of school feeding program. With the introduction of National Health Insurance Scheme, with the introduction of the maternity free care, with the introduction of the mass metro program, with the introduction of mass praying exercise. Common sense, which they are lacking. Common sense.
Nano Bribwa, I'm wondering, this issue has come up again, and did come up really, the crisis in the NPP. Johnson Ketia and the NDC says that Nana Akufo-Addo has no more authority to question the president's leadership skills because he's not been able to handle the crisis in his own party.
But my brother, let's be very honest. Do we have crisis in NPP?
What has happened over the past couple of months?
So are you saying that if an office holder in the political party is suspended, that amounts to a state of a crisis? For instance, some years gone by, when Kofi Adams was suspended, do you think mature person, level-minded person will conclude by saying that there used to be crisis in NDC at that time?
So you're denying at all that there's any crisis in there?
Even as we are talking now, some NDC activists have been suspended. Do you think any mature person, reasonable person, should draw the conclusion that there's crisis in NDC? In any case, assuming without admitting that we have crisis in NPP, a lot of Ghanaians prefer NPP in crisis to NDC being led by a clueless and a visionless leader.
Very well, Nana Obriwine, finally, before you leave, we're running out of time, but I want to pick your thoughts. Yesterday, Nanado asked that government should give one example of a social intervention. The NDC provided that. They've talked about providing free sandals for school children, for example, expanding access to water to areas including Nanado's own hometown in Chebi. These are examples the government has provided.
I wish that we should not even be wasting our time on. How do you describe?
Children?
Come again.
Provision of sandals to school children?
Provision of what?
Sandals to school children.
How many children? How many school-going children? Where? Where and when? Where and when?
You doubting that?
That is why I describe all of them as a bunch of shameless characters. They have cheapened politics to a certain level that I weep for Ghana, I weep for Africa. They are the nouveau riche. They are the nouveau riche.
Very well, thank you so much, Nana Obriwine.
A member of the Bui board. And at the same time, I still look at owns the company that produces blocks for Bui.
Very well, we'll leave it here. That's all time will allow us for Nana Obriwine. Thank you so much, Deputy General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party. That'll be it for today's big story. My name is Kwache Alfreniama.